I want to point out sulfur was the initially in the model. Now it's aluminum. And he said, well, we've done a lot of studies on sulfur, and it's not, not too damaging to human health. And then Dane said, I'm not talking about sulfur. He said, you were talking about aluminum. And David Keith took a deep breath. He swallowed, and he said, well, aluminum, we've only begun to research and publish nothing, so there's something terrible that we could find tomorrow. And Ed found something, thank God, right before we finished up the film, and perhaps you can talk about those studies, Ed.
Well, yeah. One of our readers sent me a whole bunch of email links to scientific papers that were actually published on the Internet, if you knew where to go find them. And they were published by government agencies. There was one very important one that was done by the United States Air Force years ago about the possible toxic effects of aluminum particles in the air. And it was a very scientific article. It was not the only one, but they concluded to say, yep, just as we thought, this stuff is not good. This is very, very toxic. It destroys the immune system, does all kinds of things that we don't want to have happen. So there it was, even on the Internet. So here's this guy who's claiming to be one of the world experts and geoengineers saying, we don't know if there could be something dangerous out there. Well, either he is not an expert at all, and he's a quack pretending to have knowledge, or he's lying. So, take your choice. We're in the hands of either very stupid or very evil people.
The thing that was profound was the level of disconnect in these geoengineers. They're totally disconnected from the ramifications of what they're doing and proposing to do. It's unbelievable to observe this, and I hope everybody buys this film. You've got to see what in the world are they spraying. It's imperative. Buy it. Go ahead, Michael.
Well, yeah, I'd like to touch on the mentality within these the geoengineers, and the benefits were very few. There were like 3 benefits. One of them was cooling the planet. I question if that's even a benefit, but there were about 14 risks that were listed that they discussed. Some of those were droughts in Africa and Asia. Other ones were ozone depletion. Once you start, it's going to be very difficult to stop, even if you can, in immediately warming the planet after stopping these programs. But this is their mentality. They say, and David Keith compared geoengineering to chemotherapy, and he said, geoengineering is like chemotherapy. Nobody wants it, but if we have to use it because it may negatively impact many things, and some people may extremely be negatively impacted, but we may have to use it. Listen, I'm never going to use chemotherapy because I know that there are natural cures out there, but that's their mentality. They're saying, well, sure, some people are going to be hurt, but we may have to use it, and that's how they're selling it to the public. And I believe there are very strong links to depopulation and eugenics, and I want to bring up Bill Gates, who is a heavy funder into geoengineering, but I know Ed talks about the collectivism quite a bit, and perhaps you can touch on that, Ed.
Well, in terms of what, Mike? In terms of shortening lifespan? Is that what?
Well, in terms of their mentality, they're saying.
Oh, yes, I understand now. Yeah, all these people are total collectivists, and one of the characteristics of a collectivist is that they believe that the group is more important than the individual, and that individuals or minorities must be sacrificed if necessary, that's the word, if necessary, for the greater good of the greater number. Well, all of the greatest crimes of history have been, or at least modern history, have been committed under the name of this was good for society, this was good for the nation, this was good for humanity or mankind. Okay, we had to kill a couple thousand people, too bad, but look at the greater good we did. This is the mentality of collectivism, and it's just everywhere you look in this geoengineering topic.
Don't you think the Air Force is doing this project? Seriously. Don't you think the Air Force runs this project? Or the Navy? Seriously.
Well, this is a multi-billion-dollar, and it's a worldwide program. So it's not any one entity. There are many different corporations and many different facets. I think it's safe to assume in government, different government agencies with this. With that being said, many people have photographed KC-130s, and and KC-10 doing the spraying. So yeah, there's definitely military and Air Force involvement, but I think it goes much deeper.
My own view on that is that it's likely, and I can't prove this, but it's likely that they have retained third parties, corporations, or contractors, as they now call them with the CIA. You know, if the CIA doesn't want to do a job because they're afraid that if it's bungled and they're exposed, it'll come back to the government, they don't do it themselves. They hire some front corporation or some company which they create as a front, and then they give them a contract, and then they do it. I think probably that's what we're looking at here. And each country involved has its own way of dealing with it, but I'm sure that they all want to distance themselves from it so that if any of these planes should fall from the sky and all of a sudden there it is in a big heap with all these chemicals spilling out, what are you going to say about that? They say, well, I don't know anything about it. Certainly not one of our planes.
Very interesting, even how it lingers in the air. I mean, it stays up there for at least an hour, at least. I mean, what stays up there for an hour or more?
Oh, yes, and when it spreads out, it's there all day long. It gets thinner, but it's there all day and probably several days.
There was a guy that went on the Power Hour. I don't know if you've heard this interview, and talked about how this is a secret program and how you can't talk about it, and that he knows people who have died talking about it, and that the truth is that this program is all about making sure that Israel is helping the United States. I don't know if this was a disinformation campaign or whatever. This guy went on for an hour. Of course, he was anonymous. We couldn't get a name. We couldn't get a phone number. We couldn't get an email. There was no website, just out of the blue. What do you think of that?
Well, I don't trust anonymous information at all, and I certainly couldn't use it. Even if I thought the guy was right, I wouldn't dare, build my case on it.
I wouldn't either, but I just wondered if you had heard that.
Yeah, well, I have heard it, but I don't think we have to go there to know that this is really bad news.
What do you think about the gentleman who came forward in Belgium? I can't remember his name that was in your film.
Perhaps Peter Verrika, former Belgium mayor?
Yes.
Well, Peter has done a lot for the movement, and when we're in Belgium, he flew me out there to speak at the first annual Chemtrail Symposium. So we brought people from around the world, politicians, scientists, and other people who would speak on this. So he's done a lot in terms of increasing awareness. So I think he's done a lot in that capacity.
I think that's pretty good for him to stand up as well. I mean, these programs are going on all over. Do you think that leaders of most nations, and I want both of your answers on this, know about this?
Go ahead, Mike. You first.
Well, a lot of people say, does our president here in the United States know about it? Do these people know about it? I know about it, and it's so obvious. So I just can't see how the leaders would be unaware of such a massive program and a program that affects so many people. So in my opinion, absolutely. I think they're well aware of what's going on, and not only behind it, but very supportive.
But it affects their health, too, and their families.
Well, that's an important issue, and that comes up quite a bit. And, I can't conclusively address that, but here is my belief. I know this is going on, and I'm taking measures not only to increase my immune system, but also to get these metals and other things out of my system. And that's with very limited, extremely limited knowledge. And these people who call themselves the elite, who certainly have access not only to better health care, but probably technologies that we're completely unaware of today. So perhaps they're using that. I can't answer it. But, we do know that people have taken, for political and monetary interests, have done things that are not healthy. They have sacrificed not only their health, but the health around them. So, we can only speculate, but I really think that they do have access to other technologies that may perhaps help them with this.
How about you, Edward?
Well, I certainly must conclude that these people know about it. Now, what they think about it is another issue. There's been a big change in the last 100 or so years in American politics. People in Washington used to think of themselves as representatives of the people. Now I think they think of themselves as leaders of the people.